What if the moment you realized you were tricked wasn't a scandal, but a receipt? Because this week, New York City didn't wake up to a rumor, it woke up to a number. $3. That is the new subway and bus fare that was set by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, and it landed like a slap in the face to voters who were promised free everything. Now, let's be very clear about names because clarity matters. Zoran Mamdani, he ran on free buses, free trains, and relief for working New Yorkers. But under his watch, with Kathy Hochul still controlling the MTA, fares didn't go down, they went up. And that is when the cheering stopped. People didn't lose it because they hate progress, they lost it because the math finally showed up. The services did not improve. The buses still stalled, the trains still broke down, but the bill arrived on time and it was higher than many expected. Now, this isn't about left versus right. This is about trust versus reality, especially in January 2026 with President Donald J. Trump back in the White House and voters far less patient with slogans that collapse on contact with real life. So tonight, we're going to go ahead and break down the exact moment New Yorkers realized the fantasy was over, how the promise collapsed, and why this wasn't an accident. This was inevitable. Because when something is sold as free, someone always pays. Drop a like, subscribe. Okay, guys, this is the day that the cheering stopped in New York City, January 2026, not because of a scandal, not because of a rumor, but because the number finally showed up. $3. That is the new subway and bus fare set by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, effective immediately. And in that moment, the Free Everything campaign died in public. Now, here's the part most people were never told. Zoran Mamdani, he does not control transit fares. He never did. The MTA answers to the state and not to City Hall. And that ultimately falls under Kathy Hochul. Now, that didn't stop Mamdani from selling free buses and free trains like they were already approved, funded, and ready to roll. So when the $3 fare hit, it wasn't just a price increase. This was proof. And I warned you guys about this. This is proof that slogans were mistaken for authority, vibes were sold as policy, and promises were made that had no legal or even financial foundation behind them. That receipt didn't whisper, it screamed. Now, this wasn't just another fare hike. New Yorkers have survived those before. Now, what made this one different was timing and trust. Riders didn't see $3 and think inflation. They saw $3 and they thought, we were lied to. The buses were still late, the trains still stalled, the platforms were still packed, nothing improved except the cost. In fact, I don't know if you'd call that an improvement. Anyway, people weren't melting down because they were anti-progress. They were melting down because they voted for relief and they got a bill instead. $3 became a symbol, not a sum. A symbol that promises were imaginary and the consequences were real. Now, you could hear it in their voices. Not anger at the system, anger at the sell. Free wasn't delayed. It was never coming. It was never coming. And once the realization set in, the emotional switch flipped fast. Hope didn't fade slowly. It just snapped because the betrayal lands harder than bad news, and receipts, they hit harder than speeches. So this is where the story stops being ideological and it starts becoming mechanical. Zoran Mamdani could promise free transit every day on the campaign trail, but he could never ever deliver it without running straight into the same brick wall every mayor faces, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. So the MTA's budget is locked in the state law, labor contracts, debt service, even long-term capital plans. Free fares would basically either require massive new taxes, billions of dollars in state subsidies, or a complete collapse in service. So this means approvals from Albany, not applause from rallies. And in Albany sits Kathy Hochul, whose administration made it very clear early on that there was no appetite to blow a hole in the MTA budget in order to fund a campaign slogan. Even members of Mamdani's own party quietly signaled resistance, knowing that the math just didn't work. It wasn't mathing. So what happened wasn't sabotage. It was gravity. Promises floated, reality pulled them down, and once voters understood that free required permission that never existed, the spell broke. And this is actually where the media landscape makes everything worse, because this story is moving fast. It's emotional, and social media rewards outrage and not accuracy. So this is what I do. I go ahead and pull up the exact NYC fare hike story up on Ground News. Now, right here, I can see it's covered by 20 plus sources. You've got outlets leaning left, outlets leaning right, and some international coverage too. Now, if you scroll down, you can actually compare headlines side by side. One frames it as necessary funding, another one calls it voter betrayal. Same facts, totally different spin. Now, Ground News shows bias, factuality, ownership, and even stories one side barely even covers it all. This is why I use it. Now, if you want the full picture, go ahead and visit ground.news cablenews.com/Ron Yates to get 40% off the Vantage plan, or actually go ahead and scan the QR code on your screen right now and go directly to get your 40% off the Vantage plan. And I've also linked the exact story that I'm showing in the description down below. Now, the backlash didn't come from think tanks or cable news panels. It actually came from sidewalks, subway platforms, and cell phones that were pulled out in frustration. TikTok filled up with raw clips of New Yorkers saying the exact same thing in 100 different ways. You sold us something that was never real. Now, these weren't ideological hit jobs. These were personal reactions from people who organized their lives around a promise that vanished overnight. I mean, you can pretty much hear the disbelief turn into anger in real time. People weren't debating transit policy. They were reliving the moment that they realized that they had been defending a fantasy. That's why the clips traveled so fast. Anyone who voted for free rides, free buses, they recognized that sinking feeling in their stomachs instantly. Now, this wasn't pundit outrage. This was voter regret going viral. So once that happened, the narrative escaped City Hall entirely, and there was no press conference that could put it back in the box. So this is where the trust didn't just crack, it collapsed. Days after the $3 fare reality hit, Zoran Mamdani, he pivoted from campaigning on free to urgently asking for millions of dollars in new funding. Reports of a $4 million fundraising push landed like gasoline on an already burning fire. Now, to voters, the timing felt brutal. They were adjusting the higher daily costs while being told that the movement needed more cash to survive. This is when supporters realized this wasn't optimism, this was math avoidance. You can't promise zero-cost services and then immediately ask the same people to bankroll the fallout. The contradiction, it was impossible to ignore. The ask wasn't framed as policy refinement, it was framed as necessity, and necessity exposed the truth. The plan never balanced. And so once money enters the conversation, ideology exits. Fundraising made the abstract concrete. It pretty much turned a broken promise into a financial emergency. And voters, they understood instantly who was expected to absorb the difference. Now, I want you to think about the emotional whiplash here. Weeks earlier, there were cheers and selfies and chants about a new kind of city. We won. That's what people said. This time, it's different. Then the bills arrived. The turnstiles didn't open for free. The bus driver still asked for a fare. And then all of a sudden, the movement that promised relief was suddenly asking for donations. Now, the silence after that was loud. There were no victory laps, no celebration clips, just people recalculating their trust. Hope didn't die because people changed their values. It died because the story changed without warning. Free turned into fundraising. Relief turned into responsibility. And once that flip happened, it couldn't be undone. Movements survive momentum. Hustles survive urgency. New Yorkers unfortunately realized a little bit too late which one they were a part of. Now, this is where it gets even worse. As transit anger spreads, New Yorkers, they started connecting dots beyond the turnstile, straight into housing. Enter Sia Weaver, a key figure tied directly to the Democratic Socialists of America, whose past rhetoric framed home ownership as a tool of white supremacy and called for aggressive state intervention in private property. So why did this suddenly matter to transit riders? Because people sensed a pattern. Free transit that never penciled out, housing theories that dismissed ownership outright. It wasn't one policy anymore. It was an ideology that treated costs, constraints, and incentives as optional. And so once housing entered the conversation, skepticism hardened. Voters weren't debating philosophy. They were asking whether the same magical thinking behind the free rides was now steering housing decisions too. Now, that realization, it changed the tone from frustration to fear. Fear that slogans were replacing systems across the city. Then, of course, came the detail that completely snapped the tension in half. Weaver's family wealth. Reports surfaced about a $1.6 million home tied to her family, the very same kind of private ownership that her rhetoric condemned. Now, that contrast right there, folks, that's all it took. Rules for you, exceptions for us. Go ahead and say the system's evil, but profit from it anyway. New Yorkers didn't need a dissertation to understand the hypocrisy. They felt it instantly. If ownership is immoral, then why keep it? If capitalism really is the problem, then why enjoy its upside? The questions answered themselves, and they didn't answer in favor of trust. This wasn't about envy, this was about credibility. Once voters saw leaders preaching sacrifice, meanwhile they're living comfortably within the system that they criticized, patience evaporated. The fuse, it didn't burn very long, it exploded. And this is exactly how people get blindsided in other parts of their lives too. Not because they were reckless, but because they trusted what sounded covered. So if you were told me he needed an MRI, he checked his Medicare plan, the scan was covered, but what he didn't know, the facility fee wasn't covered. Now, this surprise bill came out to nearly $600. This is why I partner with Chapter. They help you understand the silent traps collapse inside Medicare before they hit, and they do it for free. Now, most people, they're already calling the phone number down below, 909-563-8279, or they're clicking the link down below in the description of this video, askchapter.org/Ron, to get clarity before the bill shows up. Now, here's the part most people missed. This did not feel like a bad rollout. It felt like a setup. When New Yorkers looked back, they saw a pattern. Transit promises that ignored the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, housing rhetoric that dismissed ownership, meanwhile insiders benefited from it, a sudden fundraising push after campaigning on free. And throughout it all, Zoran Mamdani speaking with clarity about outcomes he never had authority to guarantee from day one. This is why voters didn't say he failed. They say he sold us something. A policy failure invites debate. A bait and switch invites anger. People organize their expectations differently when basically they're promised relief versus reform. Relief is immediate. Reform is conditional. The campaign blurred that line on purpose. This wasn't left versus right. This was expectation versus reality. And once those expectations collapsed, so did the trust that held the coalition together. Now, I want you to understand this. Context matters, okay? It's January 2026, and Donald J. Trump, he's back in the White House. Love him or hate him, his return changed voter psychology. People are less patient with vague promises and far more skeptical of trust us type of governance. The country just lived through years where rhetoric and results were constantly compared in real time. So when New Yorkers heard big guarantees without concrete authority, alarms went off faster than they would have a decade ago. The political climate sharpened the contrast. Now, nationally, voters are watching who owns outcomes and who dodges responsibility. That lens did not spare City Hall in New York City. This is not about Trump policies bleeding into local transit. This is about a cultural reset. Proof matters again. And once that expectation set, leaders who rely on vibes instead of verifiable power, they get exposed very quickly. What happened in New York City wasn't a fluke, it was a stress test. NYC became the proving ground for a style of politics that promises outcomes first and figures out the constraints later. Groups aligned with the Democratic Socialists of America framed ambition as virtue and treated budgets as obstacles to be negotiated after the applause. That works until the invoices arrive. Now, here's the warning that other blue cities could literally hear very clearly. Voters will tolerate bold ideas, but they will not tolerate fantasies presented as guarantees. Transit exposed it first because transit is daily, unavoidable, and paid for at the turnstile. Housing followed because it touches stability and savings. And so once transit and housing collided with reality, the messaging cracked. New York didn't reject progress. It rejected friction. And when the biggest city in the country snaps back to arithmetic, every mayor watching should take notes. The $3 fare wasn't the end. It was the opening charge. More fees are coming, more friction is ahead, and the honeymoon is officially over. New Yorkers didn't suddenly become cynical. They became informed. They learned the difference between power and persuasion, between slogans and systems. This is the moment that the city grew up real fast. The moment that voters realized that free always has a payer. And it's usually the same people standing on the platform at 7 a.m. in the morning. Now, the anger that you saw wasn't about a number. It was about respect, about being told the truth before the vote, not after the receipt. And once people feel played, they never forget that. They adjust, they scrutinize, they demand proof. That is the lasting change here, not outrage, awareness. Because once reality checks clear, the next bill doesn't shock anymore. It just confirms what they already learned the hard way.